Hello everybody, this is Dr. Kevin Novak again. I was sitting looking at the fish tank thinking to myself just how easy the discus are to take care of. Now 20 years ago I would have never said that, never, because I had them and the challenge of keeping them, doing water changes maybe every single day, every other day, some people doing water changes twice a day. It just became too much, and they were a big hassle, and they were always a fish that always got sick, always had problems. No matter what you tried, you really had to be very dedicated to them. And today, 20 years later, I decided to use the Anoxic filter on my tank, and the discus are a piece of cake. They're nothing to take care of. Before I get into that, this is some of the submergent plants that are starting to grow. As long as the bristlenose leave them alone, they're looking pretty good now. And look at all the sword plants I'm getting. Anyhow, these discus that you see here are doing great. I decided to do one water change a month as not to give people a bad outlook on everything about the Anoxic filter. That's a piece of cake. 12 times a year, hey, I can handle that. That's not even a problem. I can do that with my eyes closed. The thing about it is the tank is doing great. If you watch my videos, I tell you how I set it up and everything. But look at these discs. They're incredible. They're just so easy to take care of. They're eating well. No diseases, no nothing. Now, 20 years ago, I would have never told you this. 20, 25 years ago, no, I would have said, these fish are for very dedicated hobbyists who don't mind spending a lot of time taking care of them. But these fish are in 7.8 pH, very hard water. We have hard Lake Michigan water. I do use CO2, which brings the pH down to about 7, because CO2 is an acidifier. And when you add CO2, it's going to make your tank more acidic. And therefore, if your pH is not high enough, you can't really add very much CO2 to it because it's going to drop it down, depending on how much CO2 you add to it. But in Chicagoland here, we got Lake Michigan water, which is very hard, and we even build up a white crust on the top of our tanks. My TDS in this tank right now is 220. Out of the tap, it's about 111 to 130. So they're in, some people would say high TDS, but TDS is something that is a misnomer of judging water quality and does not have anything to do with water quality. TDS is a secondary measurement of water quality. Secondary, it's not primary. And it's just something that gives you numbers, but you don't know what the numbers mean. And there would be more testing to those numbers to really get what is happening in your tank when you say you have a TDS of, let's say, 220. But I've always known that these fish needed very low TDS, which is, once again, a misnomer. It's not true. I think what it is, it's water quality more so than anything, and the Anoxic filter seems to be doing that. They are having no problems at all. Absolutely none using an Anoxic filter. I can't say that much for any other filter that I've used, and I've used canister filters and everything. But for these fish, they seem to be doing quite well. And with no diseases, anything else about them. And for you individuals, I know it's Christmas time, probably thinking, oh, I got a fish tank for Christmas. But really, if you've never had these fish because you've always thought they're just way, way too hard to keep, maybe you'll have to rethink about how you set up your tank, what kind of filtration system you have, and everything else. Because I'm just being honest with you. Like I said, 20 years ago, I would have said, no, that's more for a dedicated hobbyist. you know, a lot of water changes, a lot of being committed to these animals to keep them healthy and alive. But now I keep them at 85 degrees and they're a piece of cake. I don't even worry about them. They're eating well. They're doing everything well. I just can't believe it. I'm being honest with you. I just can't believe it. If I would have known this, I would have used the Anoxic filter on them years and years and years ago. But it was just one of those things that you try once and you try to keep them and breed them and stuff like that, which I did. But it was such a hassle, at least for me. I know a lot of people are more dedicated than me and don't mind doing water changes every day or whatever, and keep them in bare bottom tanks. You know, that I didn't like that either. But they are doing absolutely great in this tank. The plants are doing great. As you can see, look at all these swords I have now. I planted them up. These aren't swords I bought. These are all swords that came from the emergent swords that I bought, and they died out. And these are submergent swords, and they're finally taking hold. So I'm very happy about that. They're coming out real good using my putting fertilizers in the tank. Lasts 4 hours, the lights are on, things like that. They're doing absolutely great. But I thought I'd just make this video because I know a lot of people, it's going to be Christmas, you're thinking of Christmas present. I know you're even thinking of maybe you're going to get a new fish tank for Christmas. Well, maybe this Christmas, if you've always wanted these Discus, like I have always wanted them, but you've always stayed away from them because you see these videos and you just read or you hear people, all the work that has to be done, or they get sick a lot. Maybe you need to rethink what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that's what these videos are about. This Anoxic filtration system is nothing new, of course. It's used on ponds, very heavily stocked ponds. But actually, the TDS in my tank is higher than my pond. My pond is about 114 to 120 to 129. The fish tank is higher because, don't forget, the substrate I'm using is releasing iron and magnesium and stuff out of the substrate. But I can make a video on TDS later to explain more about what it really is, and do you need to be as concerned about the numbers as you think. And the truth of the matter is, for people who have very high TDS, let's say you have like me, 220, that's high, 300, and then you see someone say, oh, my TDS is only 45. Well, there's a few things you have to know about TDS and low TDS. That low TDS is not all that good. Low TDS attacks metals and it causes rust almost instantly. But I'll do a video on that because I got some film and everything on TDS. So don't feel bad because your TDS is high or coming out of your tap high. We have very hard water here. Just make sure you buy fish that can take your hard water. And since most fish today are not bred, they are bred, I should say, in farms. They are not wild caught anymore, so we don't have to worry too much about how delicate species are anymore because they're all bred in fish farms now. And they're not coming from South America or Africa anymore. They're all being bred in water that is acceptable from each state or whatever the farm provides for them. But this is proof that these discs are doing just fine without all the water changes, without getting sick, being healthy. And this just proves my point that maybe we just have to rethink how we approach our aquarium keeping compared to what we were taught 20, 30, and 40, and 50 years ago. The Anoxic filter is a game changer because it uses something a little different than other filters. My nitrates are only 1 to 2 parts per million, and I have no phosphates. And these are 2 stress factors in tanks. And as you can see, there's no algae on anything. Algae's not covering anything, but that doesn't mean on the glass I don't get algae and I have to scrape off the glass. The algae grows on the glass because it's silica base, but you notice it's not growing all over the plants, but it does grow in the glass. I have to clean the glass once a week. So anyhow, I just made this video because I know people are going to be thinking of tanks and fish. It's winter time, that maybe if you're going to set up a new tank, maybe you just need to rethink about how you're going to filter it and why you're going to filter it that way. And if you're scared to death of taking care of the fish that you've maybe always wanted, the discus fish, maybe you can rethink it. Maybe you can try a different approach like I did and be very successful. And you'll soon learn that all the videos and what everybody tells you and all the water changes just aren't needed. Once a month water change should be more than enough, and that's why I will highly recommend just a once a month one, and your fish should be just fine, and they are no harder to keep than any other tropical fish that is out there, because the Anoxic filter is a game changer for everybody. So until next time, this is Dr. Kevin Novak. I hope you have a good Christmas and happy holidays, and thank you for watching.